Hello, I'm Farah, a registered clinical nutritionist, and I'm hosting Fertility Matters for Screen Me. Following my own 9 year infertility journey, I'm determined to help others with everything I know now and to share knowledge with women, men, and LGBTQ audiences to offer the best guidance from medical, holistic, complementary, and support organizations. I'll also be encouraging individuals to talk about their journeys to help others. I really want this to be real, useful, and engaging, a platform for you to contribute to. So if you have ideas, have something to say, or know somebody that does, reach out to me at f.condor@screenme.co.uk. Let's feel connected, feel part of a change, feel part of a huge support network. We are here to hold your hand through your own personal journeys, and we hope to see you happy at the other end. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, listeners, and today we're welcoming Davale Ormond, who is the founder and CEO of Frendo App. Now, what's Frendo App? It's an online community for people who suffer with endometriosis, a debilitating disease. Her knowledge extends to the disease itself, research around it, and the symptoms for spotting what's going on. Davale is designed an app that's set to empower women struggling with endometriosis and those with suspected symptoms, and hopefully by using the app, early detection through screening survey, which is very, very powerful, disease management, and with an endometriosis specific tracker, she hopes to help women get the early diagnosis that they need, and also, to get the help that they need, basically. So welcome, Davale, to the show. Firstly, maybe what we can do is say, can you tell us a little bit about endometriosis? So what is it and exactly?
Yeah, and thanks, Farah. Thanks for having me on. Really excited to be on and join you guys and Screen Me. So endometriosis is, as you said, a pretty debilitating disease. Surprisingly, still reasonably unknown, despite the fact that 1 in 9 people with periods suffer from it. It is where the tissue similar to the lining of the uterus sheds essentially in other parts of the body where it's not supposed to, and it sticks organs together. So really quite painful, and can cause organ damage, can cause nerve damage, and all sorts of other difficulties, disease sequelae, but also, psychological difficulties because of, not knowing what it actually is for quite some time. I went for 18 years without an actual diagnosis, and I believe that really does cause quite difficult mental health issues as well, because of the isolation that causes. And I know it's the same for a lot of others. So it is a reproductive illness, but it's now being considered much more a whole body disease as well.
Yes, I mean, the founder and CEO of Screen Me, who actually sponsors this show to help women with their fertility and menopausal, etc., from teen years to menopausal age health, also suffered from endometriosis, and so this is there's a common ground there in that you both set up something that it took her 10 years to get diagnosed too, and she spent quite a lot of money, which really shouldn't. She was able to, but there are a lot of people who aren't able to, and so therefore can't turn to private care in order to get what the help that they need. How does it affect sufferers? What are the main kind of things that happen, Davale, in terms of what do sufferers feel like? And if you can say that, then can people identify who are listening with those symptoms and effects?
Yeah. I think that's a really good point as well. And in terms of the expense, that's a really important point. I think so many people are waiting, like so many people within our Frendo community, I know, are still waiting, 9, 12 months on the NHS. I was diagnosed eventually in Australia, luckily. And, I was just talking to my partner the other day about the expense of each operation costing about $12,000. for each operation that's to be treated. So it's not insignificant. Like, it's a really costly condition. One of the challenges with endometriosis are the symptoms really vary from person to person, and that is a difficulty in diagnosing. But the common symptoms can be and generally are pain around your period, pain around ovulation. For me, I get significant and acute pain around ovulation. And the reason for that is, I guess if you think when the egg is releasing around ovulation, there's quite a bit of inflammation in there. I have scar tissue, I have the disease, and it's pushing out and it's causing even further inflammation. So I get a lot of pain in my lower back. I get it in my rectum. I get it all in my lower abdomen. I get sciatic pain down my right leg. They're all reasonably common symptoms. Heavy bleeding, hemorrhaging is a symptom of endometriosis as well. Migraines can be a symptom of it. I would have had quite a common pattern of nausea about 3 days before my period, and then about a day before I would have vomited, and that would have been a monthly pattern. So they're quite common symptoms. Pain during or after sex is a common symptom of endometriosis as well. Like, what people don't really talk about as well is depression and anxiety as well, and they are, there's not enough research around whether they are a symptom of the symptoms itself, the direct symptoms, or they're actually related. You look at, I mean, you'd know more about this than me, but hormones play havoc with our system. And so I really do think we don't talk enough about the mental effects of a chronic disease, and also the mental effects of hormones on our body, albeit endometriosis or menopause, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know with my personal experience of endometriosis, which again spanned over years, and I sought medical help. I had an ablation at one point. And, none of these things seem to really help. In fact, the ablation seemed to actually make it worse for me. I know that it helps some people, but other people, it really just compounds the effects of all of the symptoms that you have. But one of the key things when you're talking about mental health and stress around that is that you can lose 4 or 5 days a month, sometimes 7 days a month if you're bleeding for that long, and the bits before and the bits afterwards. And obviously, it can affect careers. It can affect family life. It can affect all sorts of really personal things, which obviously can be then, I suppose, extended to whoever you're surrounding with. So your partner and your children and your parents, and at times of the month. And quite rightly, you say those things are not taken into consideration. It's looked at as a physiological disease. It's looked at as a physiological problem. But how can you support the fact that this is going to happen? How can you reduce the heavy bleeding? Are there holistic approaches to doing that can complement any medical interventions also? But whilst you're waiting on that waiting list, are there things that you can do about it? So from my perspective, one of the key major things that when I'm dealing with women who have endometriosis is actually encouraging them to eat low glycemic load foods. And the reason why I would say that is because it actually then effectively your body has better control of your insulin, and insulin is one of the things that affect your hormones. And equally, stress management techniques are really important holistically, because, and they're, you say stress management techniques, or you say yoga or meditation, or you say, a quiet moment, looking far and near, and there are sort of, things that you can do. However, when you're saying that to people, they think, oh, that's nonsense. No one can prove that actually works. But there is science and evidence that tells you that there are certain poses in yoga that can help blood flow. There are science and evidence of things that say that if you actually do stress management technique, it has a physiological effect on you. For the very one thing that you can say is absolutely scientific is that it reduces your level of cortisol release.
Yeah.
And so therefore, cortisol, if you look at it scientifically, needs pregnenolone, and pregnenolone is something that's a precursor to more hormone production. So you've got this whole physiological scientific thing going on, and the disease is actually being looked at in a very basic level. So yes, I totally agree with you, Devale. It needs to be so much more than just looking at, well, you're heavy bleeding and you're this, and we're going to put you on the pill and we're going to do this, and actually look at it and say, well, what's happening with you? What's going on with you,
Yeah.
Devale? What's going on with you, Farah? And kind of go from there, because sufferers are affected differently, right? There's no one thing.
Yeah, huge. I totally agree. And when we were building Frendo, particularly the tracker, I mean, there are lots of cycle trackers out there, but our tracker is extremely extensive and it's customizable for that reason, because we don't just want to track pain. We don't just want to track your period. We want to track your whole lifestyle, essentially. And precisely what you said, look at it laterally. For me, I don't react to gluten or to dairy, but I react to sugar, and I can see it immediately. I can feel it immediately. I react to the environment around me. I react to that stress around me, and I can feel it immediately. So it is knowing that, and knowing your triggers. And it took me a long time to be able to actually see what those triggers are.
Yeah.
And to try to remove them. And I don't do it perfectly, but it's absolutely that. And we're not going to, I don't say by tracking these, we're going to prevent the disease, but it is about how do we manage this chronic illness in order to live a better life? And, and reduce certain things that are scientifically proven, so those things are extremely important for me. And for me, things like acupuncture certainly works when I'm in a flare. Like it is literally getting the blood moving around the body in the right way, and that is what it's doing, because it's stagnant, and so I think there are lots of things that we can do, like you said, as opposed to just, okay, we'll take the pill, or, we'll give you another surgery, which unfortunately is a lot of what our community is being told.
Yeah.
And which is why I said after my last surgery.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
That's it. I'm not putting my body under another, it's a huge stress to your body as well.
Absolutely. You've got general anesthetic in your body, you've got the whole repair and, rebalance yourself up post-surgery, the pain that you go through because of the surgery and all sorts of other things. And actually a lot of surgery, though it's helpful, it's also causing scarring. You cut yourself open to fix a bone and you've got that scar, and then you've got the scar tissue underneath it. And so actually physiologically, is it really all that great? Is it improving, or is it just compounding things? There's no evidence or studies around that, but certainly people who go through it can feel it, as you do and as you have, Devale. It's actually a really, really amazing thing that you've come on here to share that, and to share about why Frendo is so important and so crucial for women who are trying to find answers. Your endometriosis started many, many years ago. You've said that already, but what did it look like initially? What were your feelings, and how were you kind of going, what is this? What's going on with me? How did that?
I think, I remember distinctly being on a family trip to Paris, actually. And I was obviously, very excited going as a teenager for my brother's birthday, and, hoping to go shopping and out for dinner and everything. And I pretty much spent the whole time in the hotel room, very unwell. And it started basically I remember a sensation of having basically it felt like a rope was wrapped around my abdomen, and I was just curled up in excruciating pain, and that was kind of the start of the investigation. It was, so, there was no mention of endometriosis for a long, long time after that. my father was a GP, and so I was lucky enough to kind of be opened, like I had doors open to me to different kind of specialists, but still there was, it took a long time after that. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, with chronic fatigue syndrome. I was really like sporty, I was sociable, I loved going out with my friends and that, and it was really affected, it was really impacted by this erratic illness, like, because I would feel fine and I would look fine, but then suddenly, like within hours, I would have extremely sore pain in my lower abdomen, my lower back, and I would change like up by at least a dress size, maybe 2 dress sizes, with bloating, not just in my tummy, but like all around my pelvis. And, that does a lot to your self-esteem, to your body image as a young girl as well.
Yes.
I certainly think, like, looking back, it really did play havoc with who I was, or, the image I had of myself back then. So I remember then kind of, I think it was my second last year in school, and things that, really gotten quite bad. And I was brought into hospital for more tests, and the final diagnosis was fibromyalgia. And I just thought, but no, there's something else still. And I went back into life, and was just still getting very sick. And but I didn't necessarily remember having very heavy periods. I just remembered a lot of pain and fatigue. And I remember feeling like a real burden. I remember feeling, am I really actually sick? Do people actually believe me? And I think that's quite a common theme, and I really, that makes me very sad for people.
I mean, that leads me quite nicely into the next question, which is, what your bigger challenges were when you remained undiagnosed. So one of them would have been the fact that actually you started to think maybe you were mad, rather than that there was actually something wrong. Do people believe me? Am I really, is this really real? Am I really feeling this? And again, that connects back to your sort of, mental health, and the whole question of self-esteem, as in, I'm pretty bloated for 7 days of the month and feel like a balloon. And so that affects my ability to be social, as you are, DeVale. As you've said, you're social and you're sporty. So, were they the biggest challenges, or what would you say were your massive biggest challenges? Was it the fact that you didn't have anybody believing in what you were saying? Was it more an impact on your life, or was it a combination of all of it? What did it look like?
Yeah, I think it was being dismissed by doctors, and feeling like, I was very supported by my family, but I just don't think anyone knew. No one knew what to do. So no one knew what was wrong, so no one could really help. And I think there was just this sense of, I felt this sense of, God, I'm sick again. And I think that still hangs over me now, because, I still, like, it's a chronic illness, so I still get sick, and I have a young daughter, and I have a business, and I still feel a guilt when I get sick. And I think that is from really being quite sick when I was younger, and you just want to be well. It's not, we're not looking for a free pass. We actually want to be well. So I think it was probably more so the psychological impact. I remember getting the diagnosis finally, and for a lot of people, getting a diagnosis of a chronic illness, you'd be devastated. I was elated,
Yes, finally, I know what's wrong with me. Hey, I can now. I can try and find a way to manage this condition and actually live a life. And I think I felt the same way. And I think anyone who suffers with endometriosis actually just turns around and says, oh my God, I'm not nuts. And I do have these symptoms. And actually now I can try and find out what I can do about it, even before going to, meet somebody in the medical profession who actually understands it. Because, actually Dr. Gonesh of Screen Me, she always says, women's health is an extension of men's health. And most men don't even know how to talk about periods or use the right words. They don't even know what to ask you because they don't understand how women express themselves in terms of the words that they use for what they're feeling. If they're saying, oh, I've got sciatica, they'll say, go and do, physiotherapy. No,
Yeah.
I've got sciatica related to my condition. It's not sciatica because I'm really unfit and I don't move around.
Yeah.
The question of stretching it out, that's not going to work. So it's not about doctors being incapable, but it's about the women's health being an extension of men's health, because that's just historical. And I think that, the more that we talk about these things, the more that maybe there's some kind of understanding going out there of
yeah.
And that's why things like your tracker are amazing, because you're actually getting data on symptoms, and therefore you can actually say, well, these are the things that people are talking about when they're saying that they suffer or struggle with endometriosis or haven't been diagnosed with endometriosis and really need help. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think I built really what I'd hoped I'd always had. And if I go back to like how I had felt back then and felt dismissed and felt like, oh, here we go again, I'm going to another specialist. I know I'm going to walk out of here, not really having the answers. And that's a really cynical attitude, but, it was the truth. And really what you should have with Frendo is not, all the answers, but it is a tool that allows you to articulate how you feel and allows you to be heard. And that's, because the disease is quite difficult to explain and the symptoms are difficult to explain. And historically, medical professionals are not equipped, and they admit this themselves, they're not educated on the topic. Yeah. So they don't necessarily understand. And then the patient, isn't the best historian necessarily. So what Frendo is supposed to be is that tool in between, or like a mediator essentially. And that's what we're finding is very helpful, like both the screening survey, for those who suspect they have symptoms, and they can go and feel a little bit more empowered and say, hey, I've been feeling like this for like 6 months, and here it is. And also I've been tracking, and now listen to me, and really, stand up to, and don't be pushed out, because there are so many people, often as a result, sometimes of ignorance of a medical professional, because they don't know. And when you have something in front of you, or you can send it through to the doctor, then it's there, and it's like, okay, this person has been hemorrhaging for quite some time. They have, severe abdominal pain. They have sciatic. These are really the common symptoms of endometriosis. Let's get them an MRI. Let's, it is supposed to skip those steps. That's really what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So let's validate them a little bit.
Yeah, of course, you need validation, because, as you say, if you start to think you're going mad because no one believes what's going on within you, then you really start to feel quite low about the whole thing.
Absolutely.
But that's and then I think that's one of the key points. It's when I use
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Tests. There's a endometriosis markers test, for example, that I use with clients, and that's really telling, because once you've had the test, and they're affordable, they're not, private healthcare, totally unaffordable £500, £600 tests. Some of them start at £60 or whatever, and if you've been in that condition for such a long time, having an affordable way of testing is really important. And when they test, they can actually take that. So they get a doctor's report, they can take that, they get a GP who knows about this stuff, who works with a screening company, with Screen Me, and basically they can take that to the doctor and say, well, look, here's the results of my test. And I think that this consistently comes to playing back to, we do have female general practitioners, we do have gynecologists that are female, although this is a mainly male-dominated environment still. And yet there are people who've done, for example, vaginal microbiome tests, and they get the test results and their medical practitioner doesn't understand what it means, what a state type is, or and in the same way, the markers that you're talking about in terms of endometriosis and why they impact endometriosis and why it's highly likely that it is endometriosis. If you can't put two and two together, then you're not going to get the result of, I understand that this is actually going on. And a lot of the time you go to a GP or medical practitioner with symptoms, but not necessarily tested for certain markers that can give you that, sort of, I suppose, light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Yes, I do have it. Yes, it is real. And yes, a medical practitioner needs to have a look at that. So I'm guessing this is everything that led you to setting up Frendo. So where did the idea come from? And tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my career was mainly in like commercial and marketing. I moved to Australia to work for the Olympic Committee over there as commercial manager, and then kind of got a taste of startup world. Worked for a cancer startup there, which I loved, and then moved over to KPMG startup practice, and my health was really affecting my life there, and I had my third operation for treatment of endometriosis. And just for those who don't know, the gold standard, I guess, of treatment is considered to be excision of the disease and
of the endometrial tissue. They just take it out.
Removal of the disease itself. And I had like one other close friend who had stage 4, kind of quite complicated disease as well. She had moved away, and I was really feeling like quite alone. And I just thought, there, no communities, about this. No one's talking about it, except for kind of Facebook groups that were just talking negatively about it with no kind of solution focused discussion. And so I just decided to move back closer to home. I'd been there about 8 years, and I decided, okay, I'm not having any more operations, and I'm going to like really take my life into, managing my disease. And then I set it up. I set it up initially as a social network, really, and a community. And then I thought, really the challenge here is this diagnosis delay. For me, it was 18 years. On average, it's 7 to 11 years of a diagnosis delay, and that's like 1 in 9 people are, and many are waiting longer than that. And so we then started working on the screening survey, and really to try and break that cycle early, and as a result reduce that progression rate of the disease. So that's really where it all began, and my mission, my personal mission is focused predominantly on younger girls and people with periods, and focusing on screening schoolgirls and third level students, again, to really to break that cycle, at an early stage, because it's not just, I feel strongly because of my personal journey, it makes sense, like from an cost to society point of view. It makes sense from a disease point of view, from a fertility point of view. So that is our overall mission. And then our long-term mission is to become a clinical trials partner, so we can actually use the de-identified data, very wisely. And as you mentioned rightly earlier, present women in a better, in a much better light in terms of research. And
it's enlightened to do it that way, rather than kind of rely on hearsay symptoms. As you say, in some of the Facebook groups or some of the other groups where people are talking about their own symptoms, they're in such a deep, dark despair already, DeVale, that the promoting of the disease as a really negative thing, as opposed to saying, okay, look, I've got this, I know I've got this, now what am I going to do about it, and being really positive. So turning that table and saying, look, there are sufferers, we all agree that we are we are in this group of people, but let's look at holistic approaches, let's look at nutritional interventions, let's look at certain supplements that actually really, really help with that. There are certain supplements that can keep your insulin more balanced. There are certain things that you can do to increase blood flow. For example, drinking ginger tea daily, because ginger increases your blood flow. But there are things that you can do to stop your sugar craving. Cinnamon is one of those things. So it's not
I love all of those things.
Yeah, well, you would, because but the sad thing is that most women don't, and they can't find that help. And that's one of the reasons why I work as a lead clinical nutritionist at Screen Me, because what it does is it helps me as a person who struggled with endometriosis and as a clinical nutrition practitioner to actually test for things that are directly related to markers that will say, well, this is endometriosis for sure, and then look at things like inflammation, which obviously perpetuate worse endometriosis flare-ups than would otherwise if you weren't. So something silly like turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. It's a natural compound. It's been used in Ayurvedic medicine for centuries. And just including that in your foods when you cook, or drinking turmeric tea or taking a turmeric supplement can help with inflammation 3-4 days before your period comes. So it's little things like that can be shared with people, that whilst they're waiting or before they get the help they need, those are the elements that can make a little bit of a difference maybe to their life. So your career was in KPMG and you ended up building Frendo. So I'm assuming that you're now full-time doing Frendo. And so I kind of want to know, what are your hopes for the future for Frendo? I mean, I know that you're talking to Screen Me, and that's great, because I think there's such a synergy between the two things in terms of the endometriosis channel and, mutual people who would, benefit. But what's the actual, so we talked about data collection and partnership in that end. Are there any other aspirations that you have for Frendo for the future? What are your plans?
Yeah, well, we have just done a partnership with Endometriosis Australia as their preferred corporate toolkit, essentially. So our focus is very much, you mentioned early on in our chat, in terms of like how this does not just affect the patient, it really affects,
and the family and friends,
broader society, our boyfriends, our girlfriends, our partners, our wives, our husbands, our
careers, work, everything.
Absolutely.
Every touch point, right?
It's and I think we're only going to be taken seriously as a disease when government investors see the cost that it is, that it has on society. And Frendo ran an independent commission survey last year, and what showed, amongst lots of other data, that sufferers lose on average a third a month, and that's due to loss of productivity or loss of work. And so that's costing the patient, but it's also costing the employer. And you look at infertility, 30 to 50% of endo sufferers also suffer from infertility. That is that affects the partner as well, so our focus is we want to actually become an offering. We want to work with employers, so we want to actually educate and build awareness within employers to support employees a lot more. And we have a support program that we offer from Frendo, which is that we come in, we educate staff, we educate, we give certain support to employees themselves as well. And we also were releasing a feature which is called the Squad, that allows users to nominate a certain group of their so their partner, their clinician, so they can have access to a certain parts of their journey to support them. So we've lots in the pipeline. It's challenging. It's challenging times for every startup.
It's always challenging, Devail. There's no doubt about that.
Funding is always difficult, I'm not going to lie, but I feel very strongly about this, and I think we get a lot of support. We want to continue credible. We want to build credible partnerships, and I think our partnerships with nutritionists, with the likes of physio, with the likes of Pilates, they are our focus for the next phase as well, because our community want that. They know that there is more beyond standard medical treatment, and so we are looking to build out what our offering of resources are as well. But we're looking for the right team to be involved.
Absolutely, and the right partnerships. It's crucial in your growth and the partner's growth. With about 5 minutes left, Devail, I'm so grateful that you've come on. But maybe just a summary of 3 points. If somebody is really struggling right at this very moment, obviously, signing up to Frendo is a good thing. Maybe looking at Screen Me for testing, which is affordable, is a good thing, and getting some nutritional help. What are your top 3 things that you would say to them to get them from despair to there's hope?
Yeah, I've been there. I'm still there from time to time. It does pass, it's not terminal. I think that's always good to remember as well. I think it's really important to find a community. And that doesn't, it can be Frendo, it can be, our Frendo Instagram community. I am really happy to respond to DMs from people all the time, but it can also be it can be a nurse, it can be anyone you trust. But I waited too long to talk, and it was such a weight off my shoulders, because what you don't realize is there are so many people who are going through or have gone through what you are experiencing. So if you don't feel like talking, put it in writing or voice note, whatever way you want to. I would suggest that. And I would suggest be the CEO of your own health, because if you're being told there's nothing wrong and you feel that there is something strongly or just doesn't feel right, chances are there's something going on. It may not be endo, but you own that, and you your body best.
Well, if it isn't endo, at least you can discount endo and go and find out exactly what's going on. And that's the crucial point, is that if you it's not, then you need to start exploring other avenues to try and find out exactly what is going on. Oh, that's fantastic tips. So Devail, it leaves me to say thank you so much for being with us today. I can't tell you how amazing it is. And, I wish you all the success with Frendo. I hope that you get the partnerships that you need. As an endometriosis sufferer, I think that you're doing great work and incredible stuff. I've looked at the app, and I just hope it helps lots of women not go through what you and I and several other people have been through, and that through education with the medical profession, we get somewhere in terms of recognition of that it is something going on, and that that they can actually give the help that's necessary. I look forward to continuing to follow your progress, and we will speak again soon, no doubt. Thank you very much,
listeners.
You, Farah. Thank you, Devail. Thank you very much, listeners. We'll see you again shortly.
Welcome to Fertility Matters with Golnish and Lucas on the UK Health Radio. Here we discuss all things fertility, from cutting-edge science to medical interventions and traditional holistic medicine. From preconception to pregnancy and beyond, let's start our fertility journey on the world #1 Talk Health Radio.